Incompetent people are useless. Just before a suddenly assigned presentation, this message appeared in an email sent to Ethan's smartphone. Bradley, who sent this, seems to have no consideration for the company. He probably only thinks about humiliating someone he dislikes. Bradley dislikes Ethan and is trying to embarrass him and crush him with this opportunity. However, Ethan can't afford to make a mistake and cause damage to the company. Fired up, Ethan begins to introduce the product using appropriate language for the occasion. Fortunately, he managed somehow, but he couldn't let the director have his way, so he was carrying out a certain plan. Soon, that item he had given to various people would come in handy. Thinking of that time, Ethan continued to meticulously record data for payback. My name is Ethan Carter, and I'm 33 years old this year. I like efficient work and harmonious relationships with colleagues. I value connections with people and have interacted with various individuals since my college days. Talking with people from different backgrounds has taught me diverse perspectives and ways of thinking, which greatly helps in my current job. However, a close colleague once asked me curiously, "Ethan, why do you work so hard? Everyone else goes home on time." At that time, I answered, "Because pretending to be someone I'm not is just painful and a waste. It's more fun to do what I want to do." At that time, I was still young and naive about the world. I didn't consider that people have various circumstances and can't always assert what they want to do. But I don't regret saying those words, because by saying that, I met many like-minded individuals. I see, Ethan, you're admirable. Maybe I should reach out to others who want to work harder too. If I said that now as an adult, it probably wouldn't go over well. It worked out then because we were still young and surrounded by understanding people. Ethan, I found lots of like-minded people. 5 of them, that's amazing, all right. From now on, we're comrades with the same goal. From that day on, we discussed our ideals regardless of department or position. Exchanging new ideas, teaching each other efficient work methods. Such accumulation of memories forms an important foundation for who I am today. Currently, I work for a large corporation with global operations. It's a company with top-class achievements in the industry, a workplace many people aspire to. When I introduce myself and say I work there, people are surprised. However, there's a problem. A certain person who recently joined the company keeps calling me incompetent. It's troubling because I get lectured for hours, even for minor mistakes. It was June, just as the rainy season was starting. In contrast to the gloomy weather that had persisted, there was a piercing blue sky above us. As I entered the sales department office, gazing at that clear sky on my way to work, I heard the director shouting. I sighed, thinking, not again. Why can't you do something this simple quickly? Others were doing it easily. You're really slow. The one saying this to his subordinate is Bradley Thompson, the director. Director Thompson is a man in his 30s who recently joined this sales department. Wearing an expensive suit and luxury watch, with a shining wedding ring on his finger, he looks like the epitome of success. His desk is the same, scattered with high-end brand stationery and the latest tablet. Even the small ornaments in the corner are decorated with gaudy gold trim, all too flashy for an office. This Director Thompson immediately scolds his subordinates for anything he doesn't like. Especially when they don't achieve the results he expects, his verbal abuse is harsh. I promised the vice president I'd do a good job as director, but if my subordinates are useless, I'll be dragged down. I don't need incompetent people. Get back to work immediately. The male employee who was scolded apologized with, "I'm very sorry," and immediately returned to his desk. This is what happens when young people join a company like this. Should have gone to a different company. Fuming, he turns his anger towards me who had just arrived. "You incompetent employee over there, don't just stand there. Get to work. Time is limited." "Yes, sir." Not wanting to be lectured at length, I head to my desk. I couldn't bear to see the exhausted male employee. I went over to that male employee and tapped his shoulder. "That was tough. It's not much, but please eat this during break time." I hand him an energy bar I had hidden in my pocket before returning to my seat. It's not to brag, but I pretty much know the preferences of my colleagues in the same department. It's only natural, having worked at this company for over 10 years. That's why I always keep some snacks in my pocket to support my colleagues when something happens. This should help for a while, but it's still just a temporary solution. There are several other employees who are becoming depressed due to Director Thompson's scolding, so I need to do something about this situation soon. As I was thinking about this, I didn't notice at all that Director Thompson was staring at me. As I continue my work, an email arrives on my smartphone. It was from the company's CEO. Tilting my head in confusion, I read the content. After that, when work was over, after finishing a conversation with the CEO, in the conference room, I decided to keep a small voice recorder in my suit's breast pocket from that day on. A few days later, I'm working in another department's office with a voice recorder hidden in my breast pocket. I'm currently working in the International Business Department. Several members here have gone on maternity leave at the same time, so they're severely understaffed. However, since it's an awkward time to recruit new personnel, they decided to borrow knowledgeable people from other departments, which is why I'm here to help. I've helped out here several times in the past, so I should be more useful than others. I'm counting on you, Ethan. You're more trustworthy than others, and you pretty much know how things work here, right? Olivia Martinez, also in her 30s, welcomed me. Understood. It's only for a short while, but I'll do my best. Perhaps because I've had experience before, their reaction when it was decided that I would help wasn't particularly big. Blending in naturally with the members, I immediately get to work filling in where it's most needed. However, that's not the only reason I'm working here. Actually, I have a secret mission entrusted to me by the CEO. It's to investigate Director Thompson's problematic behavior. I've probably incurred Director Thompson's wrath when I was told about this transfer from the sales department to the International Business Department. He was grinning at me. Moreover, before I started working as a helper in the International Business Department, I was being asked to do many more menial tasks than usual, so it couldn't have been my imagination. While thinking about such things as I organize documents, another employee calls out to me. "Are you okay, Ethan? If you have any problems, please let us know." "No, I'm fine. We need all the help we can get, so we really appreciate any assistance you can provide." "Thank you. I'll make sure to call out if I need anything." I felt embarrassed because I had just been lost in thought and my hands had stopped moving. I need to focus and get back to work so as not to cause trouble, as if seeing through my inner thoughts. Olivia calls out to me. "You were just thinking, right? How are you doing? Managing okay?" "Yes, thanks to your support, Olivia. I really appreciate it." Olivia Martinez is a colleague in her 30s like me. We've known each other since we joined the company and have worked together for many years. We understand each other well as good colleagues, but we maintain an appropriate distance at work. Since we were new employees, we've often met both for work and privately, having shared joys and sorrows as peers. We understand each other's personalities and work styles well. Unfortunately, we're working in different departments now, but having worked at the same company for over 10 years, we know each other's departments fairly well, of course, within the limits that don't violate confidentiality. If there's anything I don't understand, I should talk to Mr. Johnson or Miss Davis, right? And Mr. Brown is good at organizing documents, so I should rely on him for research. And Miss Taylor is quite knowledgeable about technical terms. Perfect. You shouldn't have any trouble knowing who to rely on. Olivia claps her hands and praises me, looking strangely happy for some reason. "You seem to be in an unusually good mood today. What's up?" "Actually, a foreign company we've been approaching for a long time seems to have shown interest in our products. They're saying they want to receive an explanation soon. Our company wants to do business with a certain giant corporation in Germany, but we haven't been able to close the deal. However, recently it seems they're considering doing business with us, so everyone in the International Business Department is excited. I don't know the details, but good luck." "Of course, if there's anything you can help with, I'll let you know. Okay. I don't think a mere helper like me will be needed in such a situation, though. I watch Olivia, who's all fired up, with an exasperated smile. She's a forward-thinking person who takes on various new challenges. She voices various opinions to the company regardless of department differences. Recently, she's been arguing that we should develop new products for the international market. Unlike Director Thompson, she doesn't look down on people just because of their age. I often think I'd like to make Director Thompson learn from her example. After that, switching gears, I started organizing English documents, utilizing my forte. I returned the files summarizing transactions with foreign companies to their original shelves. It would be nice if they were returned to the original shelves after being taken out, but that doesn't always happen when it's busy, and sometimes mistakes are made when people are absent-minded. I'd like to organize them regularly, but many people probably want to focus on their main work, so it's a good job for a helper like me. As I was concentrating on my work, Director Thompson came to the International Business Department. Director Thompson calls out to the head of the International Business Department. I came to check on our employee's situation. Is it okay if I look around this room a bit? Department head. Yes, that's fine. The head of this department seems to be older than him, but he can't stand up to Director Thompson. Just because he's related to the vice president, he's getting too full of himself. I couldn't tell whose mumbled words those were for me, more than who said it. The content was what mattered. As soon as Director Thompson appeared, other employees started grumbling their complaints here and there. Feeling guilty, I eavesdropped on their words while compiling information. It's unfair. He became a director through connections without any real ability, and I heard he's just wandering around other departments because he has too much free time. The department heads can't say anything strongly because he has some dirt on them. Wow, the subordinates in his department must have it tough. I had thought there was something odd about Director Thompson for a while. I felt uncomfortable about him becoming a director at such a young age, so hearing this talk made me understand. As I was thinking about this and turned my gaze towards Director Thompson, I was surprised to find he had come much closer to me than I expected. He approaches me with a grinning expression on his face. It's good to see you fitting in with this department. Looks like it was the right decision to send you here as a helper, Ethan. Is that so? My face must have been tense with nervousness as I struggled with how to respond. However, Director Thompson seemed to interpret it completely differently. It looks tough, but you'll be working here for a while. Do your best. He seems to have misunderstood my expression as evidence that I'm struggling with the work in this department. Even without Director Thompson telling me, I intend to work hard so as not to cause trouble for the colleagues who have been kind to me. Oh, by the way, everyone in this department graduated from top universities. You're from a third-rate university, so you might feel out of place. But don't run away. Hearing these words, I felt something off about Director Thompson's statement. A third-rate university? Where did you hear that? The other day when I was drinking at a bar, I ran into one of your drunk colleagues and heard various things. I understand the feeling of wanting to hide your incompetence because of an unremarkable academic background, but gathering this kind of information is part of a director's job. Don't take it personally. That was probably due to the influence of alcohol making their memory hazy. I'm not actually from a third-rate university, but to avoid being called a liar and getting into trouble, I decided to keep my true background hidden. I'll be called incompetent while hiding my background, but that's fine since I'm working in the International Business Department now. Seeing that I didn't say anything back, he left the room with a satisfied look on his face. After that, I was assigned to handle a certain business negotiation by the head of the International Business Department. It was with the giant German corporation that Olivia had mentioned. To be honest, there's no way someone who's just a helper like me would be assigned such a task. Director Thompson must have done something to manipulate people based on his personal feelings when dealing with a future major client. He seems unfit for the position of director. The following weeks were quite challenging. Thinking about how I couldn't fail in this big negotiation that could affect the company's future made my stomach churn. I got through it by buying energy drinks from my favorite store on the way home from work. It was thanks to the people around me who cooperated wholeheartedly. Especially Olivia, who stayed with me even after work hours. I can't thank her enough. Thank you. If you hadn't helped me, it would have been much worse. Helping a friend is only natural, but when this is over, you're treating me to something delicious, okay? I know, I'll treat you to an exquisite dinner. And then came the day. The fateful day had finally arrived. Carrying the necessary documents, I head to the client company with Olivia, who's helping me. After giving our names at the reception, we were guided to the conference room. I was surprised when a foreign employee greeted me in German. That's when I somewhat realized Director Thompson's intentions. Olivia, looking confused, whispers to me, "Don't tell me we have to do this in German."
Looks like it. We'll just have to steel ourselves.
Steel ourselves can certainly. I'll continue with the translation and adaptation. Steel ourselves, can you actually do this? In response to Olivia's questioning words, I demonstrate with action. As I begin responding in German, Olivia's eyes widen. After that, the negotiation proceeded in a very positive atmosphere. They probably had intended to do business with our company from the start. The conversation even extended to matters after the deal was concluded. As the negotiation progressed, more and more Japanese employees gradually joined the conference room, probably due to the importance of this deal. Representatives from various departments seemed to be participating. I thought it would be difficult to continue the discussion any further since I couldn't make detailed decisions. So, I was about to explain the situation to the newly joined Japanese employees and suggest we wrap up for the day. However, things weren't that simple. "Excuse me, aren't we scheduled to give a product presentation in the grand conference room after this? We'll guide you there shortly. But do you have other plans?" Olivia and I exchanged glances, both uttering, "Ha." "We weren't told about this. Isn't there some mistake?" "No. Maybe Director Thompson pulled some strings. Fortunately, we have what we need, so I think we should handle it without causing a stir." I tell myself it's just one more unexpected thing, having already decided to steel myself. So, we head to the grand conference room, and round 2 begins. On the way, I receive an email from Director Thompson. I'm oddly impressed by how well-timed this harassment is. Almost time for the presentation. The meaninglessly long text continued, so I skimmed through it, but the last part concluded with, "Incompetent people are useless." I remembered that he still misunderstood my academic background. After that, as I entered the grand conference room, I took my place on the prepared podium. Taking a deep breath, I quickly organized in my head how to explain in German to match the nationalities of the hundreds of employees gathered there. "Thank you for taking the time out of your valuable schedules to be here today." After greeting in English, I quickly switched to German and said the same thing. Seeing those who tilted their heads at my initial words, I nodded in understanding. Those present here had apparently been told that the product explanation would be in German. As I continue speaking in German, I look at the faces of those present one by one while holding the materials and explaining the details. Since everyone seemed to be listening to the explanation normally, I realized there was no one here intending to demean me. As I continue the presentation standing on the podium, I notice someone new entering the grand conference room. It's Director Thompson, who should be at the company. Perhaps he came to see if his subordinate was explaining properly. However, he looked surprised to see me explaining fluently. With a frustrated expression, Director Thompson immediately left the scene. After finishing the explanation session, I returned to the company, reported to the International Business Department, and then also visited the Sales Department. It feels a bit nostalgic since I've been working in the International Business Department all this time. As I look around, I see familiar small voice recorders placed on my colleagues' desks. Seeing those that hadn't been thrown away, I judged that the plan was progressing smoothly. Director Thompson throws harsh words at me. I was watching. What was that all about? I didn't hear about this. What do you mean by that? Don't play dumb. You were speaking fluent German at the client company. I had only asked to make sure there were no misunderstandings, but it seems he thought I was messing around. Glaring at me, Director Thompson slams his desk hard. I never heard you could speak German so well. Were you lying? And I heard you introduced yourself as a top university graduate during the negotiation. I was surprised when I heard it from the client's employee on the way back. I never intended to lie. I stated it clearly when I introduced myself to you when you first became director. When he became the director of this company, all the subordinate employees introduced themselves, but it seems he hadn't listened properly. Hearing my words, Director Thompson throws a pen from his desk at me. I easily dodge it, having anticipated it when he reached for the pen. Then, Director Thompson starts throwing his pencil case, files, and crumpled paper trash one after another. Seeing that only the voice recorder remained on the desk, he seemed to calm down. All right, let's calm down for a moment. Changing his approach, he takes a deep breath and then grabs my hand with strong force, looking frustrated. You did well on this matter. I'm really glad you met my expectations. From the outside, it might look like a superior praising his subordinate, but I know best that's not the case. Director Thompson's mouth is twitching, and more than anything, I can feel tremendous force on my hand. It feels like a small animal being constricted by a snake, but I just have to endure. After a good 30 seconds, Director Thompson finished the handshake and snorted. Don't get cocky, I'll definitely drive you out of here. Threatening me in a menacing voice, Director Thompson seems to switch gears after taking a long breath. Get back to your own work. I don't want to talk to you anymore. Of course, I felt the same way. There was nothing more to talk about with Director Thompson, so I immediately left the scene. A week has passed since then. I'm still receiving minor harassment from Director Thompson. However, most of it is not a big deal. Director Thompson, who comes to check on me, nags at me or makes me run errands like buying lunch, but basically, he doesn't bother me much when I'm working in other departments, which is helpful. I was carrying some paper for employees who prefer drawing design sketches on paper rather than on a computer. Olivia, who offered to help, took half of my load and started talking to me. Come to think of it, your director was frequently showing his face here until recently, but I haven't seen him at all lately. I search my memory of the last 2 to 3 days as I answer. You're right. It would be good if he's staying quiet because he's reflecting on his actions, but I feel a bit uneasy thinking he might be plotting something again. It was good that I managed to handle the recent negotiation and the subsequent product explanation presentation well. But if I hadn't, it would have caused trouble for the entire company. Well, it's better not to have such a reckless person around, by the way. That voice recorder, it's a different one today, isn't it? Ethan checks his breast pocket and smiles slightly. You're quite observant, actually. The previous recorder malfunctioned, so it's being repaired at the manufacturer. This is a substitute. I see, but why do you always carry a voice recorder around? That's... Ethan hesitates a bit. He can't say it's to record Director Thompson's behavior. It's to quickly record work ideas when they pop up. Voice memos are convenient. I see. That's so like you, Ethan. Always dedicated to work. Hearing those words, I'm reminded of Director Thompson. Director Thompson, being related to the Vice President, seems to live quite a luxurious life. He frequently buys new things and throws away what he no longer needs. However, thinking about the craftsmen and manufacturing companies, I feel sad every time I see such behavior. I wonder if he has ever considered the feelings of those who make these things. Speaking of voice recorders, I saw you talking with the CEO about a month ago. What were you discussing? I heard something about voice recorders at that time. Oh, it's nothing important. The CEO just asked for my opinion on a new product. Hearing Olivia's words, I panicked internally, but she stared at my face for a while before averting her gaze. If it's something you can't talk about, I won't push it. It seems she saw right through me. It seems I'll be able to talk about it soon, but lying to a friend makes me feel guilty. While we were talking, it seemed break time had arrived. Employees finishing up their work started leaving the office one after another. Some headed to the cafeteria, others to convenience stores, each with their own destination. Among them, we too headed out of the company to go to a nearby sandwich shop. Perhaps because it was exam period and school had ended early, we saw students passing by in front of us. It makes me nostalgic for the days when we were studying in college. As I mutter this, looking at the young people, Olivia agrees with a yeah. At 33, seeing various things makes you feel that way, doesn't it? Back then, even if we failed, the adults around us would cover for us in various ways.
It was really helpful.
You were quite the challenger, Olivia. Yes, there were so many things I wanted to try. I was really fortunate to have teachers and adults around me who let me do those things freely. Olivia attended a different university from me, but it seems she met good teachers and was able to do various things. I heard she participated in overseas study programs, interned at venture companies, and did all sorts of things. But maybe Director Thompson wasn't like that. What do you mean? The other day, I passed him in the hallway at the office. There was a man with him who looked like a bodyguard.
Oh, really? That happened?
Yeah, that man was loudly telling Director Thompson, "Please let me know if you're going anywhere outside." They seemed to be talking like they had known each other for a long time. I see, then Director Thompson must have felt constrained too. I only know Director Thompson in the office, so I never thought about his private life. But if what Olivia said is true, I think a life constantly accompanied by a bodyguard would be tiring. Maybe Director Thompson was in an environment where he wasn't allowed to challenge himself or make mistakes. After that, we headed to our usual sandwich shop in a slightly somber mood. After eating sandwiches with Olivia, we returned to the office a few minutes before the end of break time, only to find my desk had been ransacked. This is terrible. Who could have done this? For now, I tried asking those who were eating their lunch in the room about what happened, but they just turned pale and said nothing. This reaction is familiar. It's the same as the male employee who was yelled at by Director Thompson. They've probably been threatened by Director Thompson and told to keep quiet. So, I talked to a colleague sitting at a nearby desk and retrieved the voice recorder placed there. Olivia tilts her head, seeing this. Isn't that the one you gave as a gift to everyone recently? Yes, I asked them to keep it on their desks just in case. Just in case of what? Facing Olivia, who looked puzzled, I explained in detail about that voice recorder. Hearing this, Olivia let out a sigh of understanding. "Huh, so that's what the thing in your pocket meant. I thought you were just a voice recording enthusiast." "I'll have you know I do like voice recorders too." "Yes, we'll talk about that later. Anyway, Director Thompson would be surprised if he knew about this. We can't let him continue to act selfishly and constantly scold his subordinates. It seems it's time to collect the various things I've prepared and submit them to the appropriate place." The next day, as soon as I arrived at the company, I was summoned along with Director Thompson. Our destination was the CEO's office. Entering the room with Director Thompson, whom I met on the way, we saw the person sitting at the desk looking at us. This man, bearing the weight of an entire company, is CEO Robert Wilson, Director Thompson's uncle. He's in his 50s, but his youthfulness could pass for a generation younger. His hair is naturally grey, and he's wearing a simple, unadorned suit. To the casual observer, he might just look like a plain middle-aged man. However, he's an exceptional individual who rapidly grew this company from rock bottom in just a few years. Not understanding why he was summoned by such a CEO, Director Thompson looks confused, his gaze wandering here and there. What exactly is this about?" Unable to bear the heavy atmosphere filling the room, Director Thompson stutters as he opens his mouth. The CEO sighs and looks at Director Thompson's face. "Director Thompson, I'm disappointed in you." Saying this, The CO takes out a paper bag that was probably placed behind his desk. Inside were the small voice recorders I had distributed to my colleagues. These voice recorders had been displayed on my colleagues' desks the entire time I was working in the sales department. However, the time had come for them to fulfill their purpose, so they were all collected like this.
Why are those here?
Unable to keep up with the situation, Director Thompson also turns his gaze to me. Director Thompson seems to be asking me with his eyes if I know something. However, I didn't open my mouth. The CO takes a small voice recorder out of his desk drawer. At first glance, it looks like an ordinary voice recorder, but when the CEO presses a small button on its side, the outer case opens, revealing another small voice recorder inside. That's... The CEO explains to the surprised Director Thompson. As you can see, this is a disguised voice recorder. Ethan has been using this to record your words, your unbearable verbal abuse. After hearing it, I had to reflect on my own foolishness. You uncle, this is not. This is. Director Thompson, his face suddenly changing color, addresses the CO in a high-pitched voice. However, the CEO doesn't flinch even seeing his nephew's panicked face. Be quiet. I don't remember allowing you to make excuses. Hearing his uncle's cold voice, Director Thompson lets out a small shriek and takes a step back. I thought it was my duty to raise my sister's child without want, but it seems I was mistaken. Having unexpectedly heard something personal, I don't know how to react. While I have issues with Director Thompson, I can't listen to someone else's private matters with a straight face. And since I'm not the type of person who can rejoice in others' misfortunes, I just find myself at a loss for how to respond. Director Thompson, you're fired. I gave you the position of director because I thought you had ability, but it seems my judgment was clouded. At this rate, I might have to doubt the school records and teacher recommendations you've shown me in the past. Having said that,